of modern education in India. Today, a learner like you goes to school to get your education. There you sit on a chair and have a desk to put your bag, books, a notebook and pen or pencils to write with. In most of the schools, English is the medium of instruction. Can you guess who brought all these to us? These were the British who brought a new style of education in India. Before the coming of British in our country, only boys were sent to schools called pathshalas. Pathshalas were the schools where classes were held in open or in a room or in a private house. The higher sections of society preferred their boys to be taught at home by private teachers or preferred them to be sent to Gurukul, where special tutors were available. The pupils mainly learnt the religious and mythological stories and some pahadas, arithmetic tables. One of these pahadas was Do Ekdam Do Duni Char, Do Tiya Chhe. They used to learn shlokas, dohas, chopais, etc. The learners who were interested in languages of law court, poetry, philosophy, grammar and Euclid geometry, etc. were sent to Persian schools called maktabs. However, these institutions did not promote the spirit of inquiry. It was with the coming of the British that the traditional education system in India underwent a dramatic change. Western education. Initially, the British did not try to change the existing system of education, but in the early 19th century, the Christian missionaries began to influence Indians by Western liberal ideas. It was then the British government that began to encourage the spread of Western education among the Indians. The Christian missionaries believed that the spread of Western education in India would help them win converts. So they established education institutions attached to their churches, mainly in Madras, Bombay and Calcutta. The British government also decided to introduce Western education in India. Motives of British educational policy. As the British conquered India and settled down in this country, they had to devise an educational policy to impart education to the Indians. The most important reason for giving modern education to the Indians was that the British wanted a cheap supply of educated Indians to work as clerks in their administration. It was too costly and perhaps not even possible to bring Englishmen from England for these jobs. So, the British introduced modern education in India in order to cut down the cost of administration. The British also expected that if Indians were given modern education, they would become good subjects and accept British rule willingly. They would accept the culture and policies of the British and will become loyal supporters of the British rule in India. A humble beginning was made when the British passed the Charter Act of 1813, the evolution of the educational policy of the British. Many British officers of the East India Company like William Jones and Henry Thomas Colebrook were interested in learning about the rich culture of India, in mastering Sanskrit and Persian language and in translating Sanskrit and Persian works in English. To know more about the heritage of India and to translate the Indian books on law, philosophy, religion, politics, arithmetic, medicine and other sciences. William Jones founded the Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1784. These Englishmen who took such deep interest in Indian heritage belonged to orientalist school of thinking. They believed that in order to know India, it was necessary to understand Indian heritage and rediscover the rich literature of India to encourage Western learning and modern sciences among the Indians. The Charter Act of 1813 directed the British Company to spend the sum of 1 lakh rupees for this purpose. Influence of Orientalists on British educational policy. Influenced by such ideas, many officials of the East India Company believed that the British should set up institutions to teach Sanskrit and Persian literature and study Indian heritage and culture to win the hearts of Indians. Only then the Indians will respect and accept the British rule. Influenced by the Orientalist thinking, a madrasa was set up in Calcutta, now Kolkata, in 1781 to promote the study of Arabic, Persian and Islamic law. The Sanskrit College was established in Benares in 1791 by Jonathan Duncan to encourage the study of ancient Sanskrit texts and Hindu law. Warren Hastings, then the Governor General himself, was a supporter of the Orientalist view. Thus, many British officials believed that they should try to promote traditional Indian rather than Western learning. The Anglicist point of view. On the other hand, many British officials criticized the Orientalist point of view. They wanted Indians to be taught the scientific education of the West through the medium of English. Officers like James Mill supported this Anglicist point of view and believed that if the Indians were given Western education, they could accept and understand the British rule and work as clerks in the British administration. One of the leading supporters of the Anglicist point of view was a British officer of the East India Company, Thomas Babington Macaulay. According to him, India was an uncivilized country that needed to be civilized. According to Macaulay, if Indians were taught English, they would come to know about the scientific ideas and the rich literature of the West. Thus, by learning English, Indians would become civilized. They will learn to adopt the tastes, values and culture of the West. Lord Macaulay wrote in a famous minute in 1835 that Oriental learning was completely inferior to European learning. He stated that European knowledge in the field of sciences is much superior to the existing Indian knowledge. The controversy between the Orientalists and the Anglicists was settled when in 1835 the British government decided that their educational policy will be to teach Western sciences and literature through the medium of English language. In 1835, Governor General Lord William Bentinck formally introduced English education in India. In 1844, English was made the official language and knowledge of English was made necessary for appointment to public offices. Wood's Dispatch of Education. Wood's Dispatch on Education in 1854 laid the foundation on which the modern system of education in India developed. Wood prepared a comprehensive report on the scheme of future education in India. This came to be considered as the Magna Carta of English education in India. The dispatch proposed several recommendations in order to improve the system of education. It was declared that the aim of the government was the promotion of Western education. For higher education, the chief medium of instruction would be English. It also recommended the establishment of a graded system of English medium schools, colleges and universities. A department of education and institutions for training teachers were also set up. The universities of Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta were set up in 1857, followed by the universities of Allahabad and Lahore in 1887. Technical education for Indians was, however, neglected. The engineering college at Roorkee, for instance, was open to Europeans only. Thus, the new education system did not wholly benefit the Indians. English medium schools were set up and brought under the control of the Government of India. Several grants were also provided for the promotion of women's education. The British government declared that Indians who studied in British schools would be given government jobs. Lord Macaulay's statement makes it amply clear the intention of the British. We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern. A class of persons, Indians in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. Hence, more and more people sought education in English medium school. Impact of British educational policy. Due to the emphasis on Western education, the traditional Indian education given by the Pathshalas and Madrasas declined. This was a major loss because lakhs of children, especially in the rural areas, were attending these Pathshalas and Madrasas. The emphasis on English as the medium of instruction in place of Indian languages prevented the spread of education to the masses. Moreover, it created a wide linguistic and cultural gap between the Western educated Indians and the masses. Moreover, because the students had to pay fees in schools and colleges, education became costly and beyond the reach of the ordinary Indians. A major drawback of the British educational policy was the almost total neglect of the education of girls, for which no funds were allotted. The educational policy also neglected scientific and technical education. By 1857, there were only 3 medical colleges in the country at Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras. There was only one engineering college at Roorkee, but that too was open only to the Europeans. In the root of many of these weaknesses lay the problem of finance. The government was never willing to spend more than a scanty sum on education. Positive impacts of Western education. As a result of the Western education, a large number of Indians developed a rational, secular, democratic and nationalist outlook. These educated Indians were the first to feel the humiliation of British rule. Their national education gave them the ability to study the evil effects of the foreign rule. They were inspired by the ideas of American and French Revolution and started questioning the unjust policies of the British rule. The English language also played an important role in uniting the educated Indians. It became the medium of communication and exchange of ideas between educated Indians from different parts of India. Promotion of national education in India. Indian thinkers and visionaries like Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore reacted against Western education and promoted national education rooted in Indian tradition and value system. Mahatma Gandhi wanted to promote an education that could help Indians develop a sense of dignity and self-respect. During the national movement, he called out to the youth to leave government-run schools and colleges. Mahatma Gandhi strongly felt that Indian language should be the medium of teaching. Education in English, he felt, crippled Indians and they did not know how to relate to the masses. He said that to reach real peace in the world, we shall have to begin with the children. According to Gandhiji, People should learn by doing. They must work with their hands, learn a craft. Only then will they get an all-round education which will help them to develop both their mind and body. Rabindranath Tagore started Shanti Niketan in 1901, a school where children could study while being close to nature, where they could be creative and give expression to their thoughts and desires. According to Tagore, our formal education system is suffocating and oppressive. It kills the natural desire of the child to be creative and imaginative. Thus, many thinkers were thinking about an alternative national education system which would make the students understand and appreciate Indian values and cultural ethos besides scientific reasoning.